First contact's price. The quantum arrays at SETI's Mauna Kea facility weren't supposed to detect anything unusual that night. Dr. Sarah Chen had run the same calibration sequence hundreds of times before, a routine check of the Deep Space Monitoring Network. But at 3:47 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, every sensor in the array lit up simultaneously. "This can't be right," she muttered, fingers flying across the holographic interface. The signal was unlike anything in their database. Structured, precise, and unmistakably artificial. It wasn't coming from Earth or any known satellite. As she triangulated its origin, her hands began to shake. The source was approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri, and it was decelerating. Within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed her findings. Something was coming, and it wanted us to know. The next 72 hours transformed human civilization. Stock markets worldwide suspended trading as panic spread. Religious leaders called for calm while military forces went to high alert. Social media exploded with theories ranging from salvation to extinction. But nobody expected what actually happened. They called themselves the Archons. Their ship, a crystalline structure the size of Manhattan, took up position in high Earth orbit exactly 4 days after first contact. Their message, broadcast simultaneously in every major language, was simple. Humanity had been watched, judged, and found wanting. In the United Nations emergency session, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the podium, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the Archean representative. The alien's form was unsettling, a towering figure of shifting geometric patterns that seemed to defy Euclidean geometry. "You claim our species is wanting," Elena said, her voice steady despite the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. "Yet you offer no explanation, no criteria for this judgment. What gives you the right?" The Archon's response came in perfectly modulated tones. "We have shepherded 1,000 species to enlightenment. We have lifted civilizations from planetary bounds to stellar empire. Your kind." A pause, almost contemptuous. "Your kind still fights among themselves. You poison your world. You lack unity, purpose, direction." "We're young," Elena countered. "We're learning. We're—" "You are chaotic," the Archean interrupted. "But we are not without mercy. We offer you a choice. A challenge. Prove your worth or accept our guidance. Those who cannot ascend must serve." The terms were laid out with mathematical precision. The Archons would present humanity with 3 trials, tests of their capability to join galactic civilization. Pass, and Earth would be granted independence and protection. Fail, and humanity would become a client species, bound to serve the Archons' vast empire for a millennium. In the weeks that followed, a hastily assembled Human Response Council debated their options. Military leaders argued for immediate resistance, better to die free than live as slaves. Scientists pushed for acceptance, seeing an opportunity to advance human knowledge by centuries. Politicians wavered between appeasement and defiance. But Dr. Chen, now part of the Council's scientific advisory team, saw something everyone else missed. Analyzing the Archon's communication patterns revealed an almost obsessive adherence to structure. Every message, every interaction followed precise mathematical rules. Their technology, while incredibly advanced, showed no signs of innovation or adaptation. "They're not just ordered," she explained to the Council, projecting her findings on the chamber's main screen. "They're rigid. And that might be our advantage." General Marcus Williams, his weathered face lined with exhaustion, leaned forward. "Explain." "Look at human history," Sarah continued. "Our greatest achievements often came from breaking patterns, not following them. The Archons see our diversity, our apparent chaos, as weakness. But what if it's actually our strength?" Elena Rodriguez, now heading the Council, nodded slowly. "We don't think like them. We don't solve problems their way. And maybe that's exactly what we need." The decision was made. Humanity would accept the challenge, but not on the Archons' terms. They would face the trials their way, with all the unpredictability, creativity, and determination that had taken them from cave paintings to the stars. As the council adjourned, Sarah stayed behind, studying the massive hologram of the Archon ship hovering above Earth. Its perfect symmetry, its flawless geometry, suddenly seemed less intimidating. Perhaps, she thought, the universe needed a little chaos to evolve. And humanity, for all its flaws, was about to teach that lesson to the stars. The first trial would begin in 7 days. Humanity had that long to prepare, to gather their best and brightest, to ready themselves for a challenge that would determine their species' fate. But as news spread across the globe, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, instead of resignation, a wave of determination swept through the human race. For the first time in history, every nation, every people, every individual faced the same choice: submit or prove their worth. The response was unanimous. Earth would not kneel. Earth would not serve. Earth would show the Archons and the galaxy exactly what chaos could achieve. As Sarah Chen left the council chamber that night, she looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, the Archons were watching, waiting, certain of their superiority. She smiled. They had no idea what they'd just started. The game was about to begin, and humanity was playing for keeps. The hidden strength. The Archon's first trial arrived in a beam of light that transformed the Sahara Desert. Where there had been endless sand, a structure now stood. A perfect dome of impossible geometry, its surface rippling with equations that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Their message was clear: solve the unsolvable. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the newly established base camp, watching teams of scientists from every corner of Earth approach the structure. The dome defied every scanning technology they possessed. It was, as far as their instruments could tell, both there and not there, existing in a state that shouldn't be possible. Beautiful, isn't it? The voice belonged to Dr. Raj Patel, a quantum physicist from Mumbai. His weathered face broke into a grin as he joined her. They think they've given us an impossible puzzle. Sarah nodded, still studying the dome. The mathematics involved. It's beyond anything we theorized. We don't even have the language to describe what we're seeing. Then perhaps, Raj said, we need to stop trying to speak their language and start using our own. That conversation sparked what would become known as the Babel Initiative. Within days, the base camp transformed into a crowded think tank unlike anything in human history. Quantum physicists worked alongside artists. Indigenous shamans shared space with AI researchers. Street magicians consulted with theoretical mathematicians. The Archons watched from orbit, their crystalline ship a constant reminder of what was at stake. Their periodic messages expressed increasing confusion at humanity's approach. Where were the ordered research teams, the hierarchical structure, the systematic testing, the hidden strength? The Archon's first trial arrived in a beam of light that transformed the Sahara Desert. Where there had been endless sand, a structure now stood, a perfect dome of impossible geometry, its surface rippling with equations that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Their message was clear: solve the unsolvable. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the newly established base camp, watching teams of scientists from every corner of Earth approach the structure. The dome defied every scanning technology they possessed. It was, as far as their instruments could tell, both there and not there, existing in a state that shouldn't be possible. Beautiful, isn't it? The voice belonged to Dr. Raj Patel, a quantum physicist from Mumbai. His weathered face broke into a grin as he joined her. They think they've given us an impossible puzzle. Sarah nodded, still studying the dome. The mathematics involved. It's beyond anything we theorized. We don't even have the language to describe what we're seeing. Then perhaps, Raj said, we need to stop trying to speak their language and start using our own. That conversation sparked what would become known as the Babel Initiative. Within days, the base camp transformed into a crowded think tank unlike anything in human history. Quantum physicists worked alongside artists. Indigenous shamans shared space with AI researchers. street magicians consulted with theoretical mathematicians. The Archons watched from orbit, their crystalline ship a constant reminder of what was at stake. Their periodic messages expressed increasing confusion at humanity's approach. Where were the ordered research teams, the hierarchical structure, the systematic testing? We've spent our entire history trying to impose perfect order on an imperfect universe, Sarah explained to the council. The Archons achieved that order, and it made them static, unable to evolve, unable to see that the flaw is the feature, not the bug. Ambassador Rodriguez smiled. Then perhaps these trials aren't just about proving our worth to them. Perhaps they're about showing them what they've lost. As teams worldwide began preparing for the second trial, a new kind of energy filled the air. Humanity had found its footing, not by trying to match the Archons' perfection, but by embracing their own beautiful chaos. The next trial would begin soon, but now Earth waited not with fear, but with anticipation. They had learned something vital. The universe didn't need more order. It needed the spark of chaos that only humanity seemed willing to embrace. In her quarters that night, Sarah Chen added a final note to her journal. Maybe the Archons didn't come to test us. Maybe they came because, deep in their perfect crystalline hearts, they knew they needed us to test them. The second trial loomed, and humanity was ready to shake the stars again, breaking the impossible. The second trial began with silence. No grand announcement, no impossible structure appearing in the desert. Instead, every electronic device on Earth simply stopped. Satellites fell quiet. Power grids went dark. Even the simplest calculators became useless hunks of plastic and metal. In the emergency command center beneath Geneva, backup generators hummed as Dr. Sarah Chen and the Human Response Council faced their new reality. The Archons' message, delivered through old-fashioned radio waves, was simple. Survive without your technology. Prove you are more than your tools. Ambassador Rodriguez's face was illuminated by emergency lighting as she addressed the council. They think they're crippling us. They don't understand that humanity lived without electronics for most of our history. More than that, General Williams added, they don't understand what losing everything has taught us. How many times has humanity rebuilt from scratch? The response to the blackout was anything but the chaos the Archons expected. In cities worldwide, people didn't panic. They adapted. Neighborhoods organized. Communities came together. Knowledge preserved in books and oral traditions suddenly became precious again. In Indonesia, traditional navigation techniques kept ships sailing. In Mongolia, ancient methods of communication across vast distances were revived. In Brazil, indigenous knowledge of agriculture and water management prevented food shortages. Humanity didn't just survive, they began to thrive in ways the Archons hadn't anticipated. Dr. Raj Patel, working with a team of historians and anthropologists, made a crucial observation. Look at the pattern, he told Sarah, spreading paper maps across a table lit by oil lamps. Every time humanity has faced catastrophe, we've emerged stronger, not because we maintained order, but because we evolved. The Archons watched from orbit as their perfect plan produced unexpected results. Instead of collapse, they witnessed renaissance. Communities rediscovered old technologies while innovating new ones that didn't rely on electronics. Mechanical computers, once museum pieces, were rebuilt and improved. Steam power saw new applications. Messages traveled through networks of mirrors and smoke signals. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hannah Murphy, a neuroscientist working in Dublin, had been studying the electromagnetic patterns of human brains during the blackout. The patterns are changing, she reported to the council via messenger. Without our technology, our brains are adapting. Sarah Chen understood the implications immediately. The Archons hadn't just given humanity a test. They'd accidentally triggered an evolutionary response. In trying to prove humans were dependent on their tools, they'd awakened something deeper. 3 weeks into the blackout, it happened. A young girl in Kenya reported seeing colors in the air, patterns of energy that shouldn't be visible to human eyes. Within days, similar reports emerged worldwide. Humans were beginning to perceive the quantum field itself, their brains adapting to fill the void left by their disable technology. The Archon ship's perfect surface now showed multiple cracks, spreading like a spider web across its crystalline hull. Their messages became shorter, less certain. They hadn't expected this, couldn't have predicted it. Their perfect models were failing. In a hidden chamber beneath the Geneva facility, Sarah Chen met with a select group of scientists and sensitives, people who had developed this new perception most strongly. Among them was Maya Ortiz, the young Mexican girl who had helped solve the first trial. Now 13, her eyes seemed to see through walls. "They're afraid," Maya said, looking up at the ceiling but seeing far beyond it. "Not of us, exactly. Of what we represent. Of change itself." Sarah nodded. They achieved perfect order, perfect stability. But in doing so, they lost something essential: the ability to adapt, to evolve, to become something new. The Council's decision was unanimous. Instead of simply enduring the blackout, humanity would use it. Teams of newly awakened sensitives began mapping quantum fields without technology. Communities developed new forms of communication based on these emerging abilities. The very absence of technology became a catalyst for unprecedented human evolution. On the 30th day of the blackout, the Archons broke their own rules. All technology suddenly reactivated, and their message boomed across every channel. Trial 2 concluded. But it wasn't triumph in their voice. It was uncertainty, perhaps even fear. In the council chamber, now bright with electric light again, Ambassador Rodriguez smiled. "They ended it early. We were supposed to endure for 60 days. They ended it because they realized what was really happening. We weren't just surviving without technology," Sarah added. "We were transcending it, becoming something they've never seen before. A species that can lose everything and turn that loss into transformation." As the world rejoiced in the return of their technology, a deeper understanding spread. The second trial had revealed something profound about both humanity and their would-be overlords. The Archon's perfect order was their prison. Humanity's chaos was their wings. The third and final trial would come soon. But now Earth waited not with determination or anticipation, but with something new: pity for beings who had sacrificed evolution for perfection. In orbit, the Archon ship's cracking surface caught Earth's sunlight, sending fractured rainbows across the sky. Change was coming, not just for humanity, but for the entire galactic order. And it would begin with imperfection. Ripples across the stars. The Archon ship was no longer alone in Earth's orbit. Other vessels had arrived. Crystalline structures of varying sizes, but all showing the same spreading fracture patterns. Earth's successful handling of the first two trials had drawn an audience. The galaxy was watching. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the newly established Quantum Observation Center in Nepal, surrounded by those who had developed sensitivity to quantum fields during the blackout. The facility's location was chosen for its isolation and unique electromagnetic properties, but now it served another purpose. It offered a clear view of what was happening above. "They're arguing," Maya Ortiz said, her enhanced perception reading the energy patterns between the ships. Now 14, she had become one of Earth's strongest sensitives. The Archons, they're divided. Ambassador Rodriguez, who had flown in from Geneva, watched the ships through both traditional telescopes and quantum sensors. "Divided about what?" "About us," Maya replied. "About everything. Some of them want to stop the trials. Others," she paused, concentrating, "others want to learn from us." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Human Response Council. The Archons, who had presented themselves as a monolithic force of perfect order, were experiencing internal conflict, something that, according to their philosophy, should have been impossible. Dr. Raj Patel, who had been analyzing data from the previous trials, saw the significance immediately. "We didn't just solve their tests," he explained to the assembled council. We've infected them with our chaos. The infection was spreading. Reports came in from the newly established network of sensitives worldwide. The fractures in the archonships weren't just physical damage. They were manifestations of change. The perfect crystalline structures were trying to evolve. Then came the unexpected. An Archon requested asylum on Earth. The being that materialized in the Quantum Observation Center was different from the geometric perfection they had first encountered. Its form shifted and flowed, more organic than crystalline. It called itself Echo, explaining that this name represented its new state, a reflection of change. "We have watched 1,000 species," Echo told the Council, its voice carrying harmonics that triggered quantum resonances in the air. "We uplifted them by teaching them order. Perfect, unchanging order. A pause, a ripple through its form. But we never learned from them, never changed, never grew. Until now." Echo revealed the truth behind the trials. They had never been about testing humanity's worthiness. They had been about finding a species capable of breaking the stagnation that was slowly killing the Archon's civilization. Perfect order, Echo explained, is perfect death. A crystal, unchanging, is just a beautiful quartz. Life requires chaos, change, evolution. We forgot this truth eons ago, and our civilization has been dying ever since. The revelation transformed the nature of the coming final trial. It was no longer about humanity proving themselves to the Archons. It was about whether humanity could save them from their own perfection. But not all Archons welcomed this change. The ships in orbit had divided into factions. Some, like Echo, embraced the chaos humanity offered. Others recoiled from it, seeing it as a disease that threatened their perfect order. Sarah Chen, working with Echo and the Sensitives, began to understand the true nature of the conflict. The fractures in their ships, she explained to the Council, they're not damage. They're growth patterns, like a seed cracking open to sprout. The metaphor proved more literal than anyone expected. The Archon ships that had embraced change began to transform. Their crystalline surfaces softened, developed organic patterns. They were becoming something new, neither the perfect order they had been nor the chaotic humanity they had encountered, but a synthesis of both. Ambassador Rodriguez, watching the transformation through quantum sensors, understood the diplomatic implications. "We're not facing an ultimatum anymore," she said. "We're witnessing a revolution." But revolution never comes without resistance. The conservative Archon faction, seeing their civilization being transformed, prepared for conflict. Their ships, still perfectly crystalline, took up attack positions. The final trial would not be a test of humanity's worthiness. It would be a battle for the very nature of civilization itself, a choice between perfect, static order and the beautiful chaos of evolution. As Earth prepared for what was to come, a new understanding spread through both species. The universe wasn't divided between order and chaos, between perfection and growth. The truth lay in the balance between them, in the dance of stability and change that made life itself possible. Echo, its form now a shifting aurora of quantum patterns, addressed the Council one final time. "We came to judge you," it said, its voice carrying notes of both sadness and hope. "Instead, you have judged us and found us wanting. The question now is not whether humanity deserves to join galactic civilization, but whether galactic civilization deserves to join humanity." Above Earth, the fractured rainbows of evolving Archon ships faced off against the cold perfection of their conservative brethren. The final trial was about to begin, and its outcome would reshape not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Sarah Chen, looking up at the confrontation through both human eyes and quantum perception, understood that humanity's greatest gift to the universe might not be their technology or their strength, but their fundamental understanding that imperfection was not a flaw to be corrected, but the very force that drove the universe forward. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what would emerge from this clash between perfection and possibility. Legacy of the Defiant. The final trial began not with a challenge, but with an attack. The conservative Archean ships, their perfect crystalline surfaces reflecting starlight like frozen rainbows, opened fire on their revolving brethren. The sky above Earth became a battlefield of light and quantum energy. In the Quantum Observation Center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched through enhanced sensors as reality itself seemed to tear around the warring ships. The conservative Archons wielded weapons of pure mathematics, trying to force their perfect order back onto their changing kin. The evolving ships responded with something new, attacks that followed patterns of chaos theory and natural growth. "They're not just fighting," Maya Ortiz said, her quantum sensitivity allowing her to see deeper patterns. "They're arguing in physics. Each attack is a philosophical statement." Echo, now more aurora than geometry, moved through the center like flowing light. "This was inevitable," it said. "Perfect order cannot coexist with evolution. One must yield to the other." But Dr. Raj Patel, who had been working with a global team of physicists and philosophers, saw something everyone else had missed. "Look at the pattern of the battle," he said, projecting a complex diagram. "It's not order versus chaos. It's a dialogue." He was right. Each attack and counterattack formed part of a larger pattern, a cosmic conversation about the nature of existence itself. The conservative Archons argued for stability, for the preservation of what had worked for eons. The evolving ones demonstrated the necessity of change, the beauty of growth, and humanity, watching from below, understood both sides. Ambassador Rodriguez called an emergency session of the Human Response Council. "We've been thinking about this wrong," she said. "We don't need to choose between order and chaos. We need to show them how to embrace both." The plan that formed was audacious. Using their newly developed quantum sensitivities and technology, adapted from both human innovation and Archean science, they would do something unprecedented. They would join the conversation. Sarah Chen led the technical team, working with Echo to modify Earth's quantum communication network. Maya Ortiz and her fellow sensitives provided the intuitive understanding needed to translate human concepts into the pure physics language of the Archons. Dr. Patel's team ensured their message would be mathematically perfect while maintaining organic flexibility. Earth's response took the form of a quantum symphony, a demonstration of how order and chaos could dance together in harmony. They showed how DNA, perhaps the most fundamental pattern of life, combined rigid structure with endless variation. They demonstrated how human consciousness itself emerged from the interplay between the quantum chaos of neurons and the ordered patterns of thought. The effect on the battling Archons was immediate. The conservative ship's perfect surfaces began to show new kinds of fractures, not the chaotic spreads of simple breakdown, but the organized patterns of deliberate change. The evolving ship stabilized, finding balance between their old crystalline nature and their new organic forms. Echo's voice carried wonder as it translated the reactions. "They're beginning to understand. Both sides. They're seeing what we couldn't see before. That true perfection isn't in unchanging order or unlimited chaos, but in the eternal dance between them." The battle transformed into something else entirely. The ships above Earth began to move in new patterns, their quantum energies weaving together in ways that defied both pure mathematics and pure randomness. They were creating something new, a form of civilization that could both preserve and evolve. In the end, the final trial was never completed because it had never really existed. The true test had not been for humanity to prove themselves worthy of galactic civilization, but for galactic civilization to prove itself worthy of change. 1 year later, Earth had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a nexus of transformation. The Archons, now calling themselves the Harmonious, had established their first embassy in Nepal, near the Quantum Observation Center. Their new forms reflected their new philosophy, crystalline structures that flowed and changed while maintaining their essential nature. Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking at the opening of the first Human Harmonious Academy of Evolution, summed up what they had all learned. The universe isn't a problem to be solved or a chaos to be tamed. It's a story that needs both structure to be understood and freedom to grow. Our job isn't to perfect it, but to help it tell itself in ever new and beautiful ways. Maya Ortiz, now heading the Academy's Department of Quantum Sensitivity Training, added her own observation. We thought they came to change us, but they really came because they needed us to change them. And in changing them, we changed ourselves. The stars above Earth shone on a new kind of civilization, one that understood that true greatness lay not in achieving perfection, but in maintaining the courage to keep evolving. The Archons had sought to test humanity's worth, only to discover that worth itself was not a fixed measure but a growing, changing thing. Ambassador Rodriguez, in her final address before taking up her new position as Earth's representative to the Harmonious Council, put it simply: we didn't win their trial. We helped them remember how to live. And in the quantum fields that connected all things, the pattern of this new understanding spread outward, touching distant stars and civilizations. The legacy of humanity's defiance would echo through the cosmos not as a story of conquest or submission, but as a reminder that the greatest strength lies not in being perfect, but in being willing to change. The universe, vast and mysterious, continued its eternal dance of order and chaos, and humanity, once judged and found wanting, had become teachers of a truth as old as existence itself, that life, in all its beautiful imperfection, thrives not despite its flaws, but because of them.